Hello everyone and welcome back to Giant Fire Breathing Robot on YouTube. My name is Craig Withers and we are back again looking at some Hearthstone today. Continuing on with our guide to starter decks for each of the classes in the game. Today we are going to be looking at Druids. As with the rest of our guides, what I've got for you today is a starter deck, 30 card deck as with all the other decks in the game. This deck uses only the basic cards that you get with the game once you've leveled the class up to level 10. You don't have to spend any money, you don't have to spend any arcane dust in the game, you don't have to craft anything, you don't have to buy anything. All you have to do is get the Druid up to level 10 and you will have access to every single one of the cards in this deck. Again, as with the other decks, sorry, we're featuring, it's not a super competitive deck. It's not going to get you all the way up the ladder. If you end up playing in any competitions or tournaments, it's not going to win you any big prizes. What it will allow you to do, is stay relatively competitive in the play mode. And it should certainly get you winning a few games, earning some gold, buying some cards, and getting your way into some arenas, which is where the real game is, at least until Natural Mass comes out, which was just announced last week. So, yeah, let's get straight into it. I'm just going to rattle through putting the deck together. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into the details of every single card. Am I spell that right? We'll just rattle through what we got. So we have 2 Enervate, we have 2 Claw, we have 2 Mark of the Wild, 2 Wild Growth, and of course onto the neutral cards we have, as always, assuming I can find, there we go, we have 2 Acidic Swampoos, we have 2 Novice Engineer, 2 River Crocolisk, where's the River Crocolisk? I can never find things. Heavens, there we go, right in front of me. Okay, and we have 2 Shattered Sun Cleric, 2 Wolf Rider, which I have lost again. I want to win the Wolf Rider later on. I don't actually use them very often, but I'll mention them later. Never mind. 2 Chillwind Yeti, obviously. We have Ascension Shield Master, only the one though. We have 1 Gnomish Inventor. Yep. Back to the Druid cards. We have, where are we? Oh, no, way past it. We have 2 Swipe. We have 2 Starfire. We have 2 Ironbark, Detectors, and last but not least, I've left them all the way to the back, the Boulder Fist Ogres. Now where are they? What on earth am I doing? You'll have to forgive me folks, I'm actually suffering under a fairly heavy cold at the moment, so my head is not quite what it should be. There we go. And 2 Boulder Fist Ogre. Okay, so not a bad deck. You'll see the mana curve there is a bit strange. It's not particularly smooth. We are very strong in the early game with not an awful lot in the late game, but that tends to be common with a lot of these starter decks. A lot of starter decks, they don't have access to the really big, powerful, heavy minions that come out of a lot of the booster packs. But I mean, that's not to say that, you know, a really good deck has to have big powerful minions in it. That's just that's foolish. So I'll go through the features of the deck in a moment. What I'll do is actually just kind of go over the kind of general features of the Druid briefly. As with in World of Warcraft, the Druid is a kind of a hybrid. It does have access to a lot of healing. Maybe not a lot of healing, but Healing Touch is a big powerful card, is one of its kind of signature cards. You will notice we don't have any of that in the deck. Partly because at this level of the game, I think generally 8 health is a is a large. That's a really, really big amount. I think if you've lost 8 health, I generally wouldn't really want to be healing it. I would be concentrating more on trying to win back the momentum of the game. Personally, that's just from my point of view. You know, there's arguments to be made there. You'll see this: choose one, do one thing, or do another thing on an awful lot of Druid cards. Now that's a common card. Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if any of the basic cards have this, but you'll see this on an awful lot of Druid cards. The ability to do one thing or another. Again, this is supposed to be, I guess, lore-wise significant of the Druid's ability to chop and change between forms, or to be a be a big tough heavy bear, or a sneaky stabby cat, tiger, lion thing. So you'll see this an awful lot in a lot of cards. And as I say, I don't think there's many cards in here that I don't think there's any cards in here that actually have that on it. No, never mind. But what you will also see is there's a lot of buffs in Druid cards. Savage Roar, which we're not using. For example, there buffs up a whole load of characters, which is incredibly useful. Starfire here, actually, we've got this. You see, this does one thing and does another. That's also that's not specific to Druids. There's a lot of cards in a lot of decks that do that, but the Druid has a lot of cards that do one thing and another thing at the same time. Claw, I mean that's buffing yourself, that's not buffing you. Oh yeah, well there you go, Power of the Wild, that's another great card. That's one thing you might want to think about dropping in later on. That's an excellent card. You buff all of your minions or summon a 3/2 minion for 2 mana, which is great, which is fantastic anyway. So yeah, so like I say, I'm not going to bang on an awful lot about what the Druid is, and that's not really the purpose of this video. I'll just rattle through some of the cards. Innervate here gives you 2 mana crystals for this turn only. Wild Growth gives you an empty mana crystal. Both do similar things in 2 different ways. Innervate gives you an immediate short-term boost to your mana. Wild Growth doesn't give you anything at the moment, but does put you a turn ahead, puts you ahead of the mana curve, which is actually incredibly useful. This seems like a bit of a waste. You're spending essentially 2 mana to get nothing at first, but the ability to be ahead of the mana curve, that is immediately going to put your opponent on the back foot if you make the best use of that. So your opponent is going to be reacting to you instead of you reacting to him, which is the position that you always want to be in. You should really be aiming for that to be your default position. Either of these, Innervate in particular, is designed, maybe not designed more, but it's more useful to bring out some of your bigger creatures. If I've got a tendency to kind of hold on to these until the mid game when I'm transitioning into the late game, and I'll use it sometimes to bring out a Boulder Fist Ogre or an Ironbark Protector a couple of turns early. If you've managed to bring it out in turn 6, or even earlier, if you've managed to drop Wild Growth before, you can bring out an Ironbark Protector. That can it might not win you the game, but it's certainly going to keep your opponent's hands full for a turn or 2 taking it out. Even just the fact that it's got taunt on it, your opponent is going to have to direct some resources to take care of it one way or the other. So yeah, so Innovating Wild Growth, two of really key cards to the Druid deck in general, not just this deck in particular. Claw down here, only 1 mana. That's a great card for the early game, not so much in the late game. As with the Druid's power, the Shapeshift power, which gives you +1 attack and +1 armor, that's a fantastic power. For my money, that's one of the best powers in the game. You can keep using that every turn, even if you're not actually attacking. You're essentially healing yourself for 1 mana every turn. Use that as often as, maybe not as often as is possible, but as often as seems right. You can use it in the early game to take out a lot of 1/1, 2/1, even 3/1 creatures. 3/1 creatures you maybe want to be a bit careful about doing, because you're going to take a bit of damage. Certainly 1/1 creatures you can trade out for them for without taking any damage. 2/1 creatures, again, you're maybe going to take 1 point of damage there, so maybe think twice about that. But that's a fantastic power. Pair this up with Claw, and you could be taking out 3/3 creatures without blinking. So that's incredibly useful. That can be useful all the way up until turn 4, maybe even turn 5, depending how things are going. yeah, and even if you don't use it, even if you don't use the attack, if you are in a bit of the, if you are kind of on the back step, that extra 2 armor can maybe give you a bit more breathing room. Although I would, you know, if you ever have the chance, use Cloak aggressively. Don't try and just use it defensively. That's a waste. Let me think. Okay, what else? Starfire. Deal 5 damage into a card. Fantastic card. 6 mana for 5 damage and a card. Don't let anyone tell you that's a bad card. They're tongue nonsense. I don't care if they're number 1 in the arena rankings and say that's a bad card. They're wrong. That's a fantastic card. That's one of the best cards in the game. What else? Starfire and Swipe. These are 2 of my favourite cards. I've got Starfire and Swipe in every single one in every single Druid deck I've ever tried. Mostly because they're just so good. Swipe has saved my bacon more than once. The excellent thing a lot of people don't actually realise there's that Starfire is more obvious, Swipe less so. They both benefit from bonus spell damage. Starfire makes sense because it's a Starfire. It's easy to forget that Swipe, because the lore of it is that it's a physical attack, it's easy to forget that will take a bonus from spell damage. So even with 1 extra spell damage, you're going to do 5 damage and 2 damage to every single enemy out there. That you can clear the board for 4 mana. That's fantastic. So yeah, Swipe and Starfire, get them in your decks. As with all of the other decks, yeah, experiment. As I said earlier on, looking at the mana curve, the deck is kind of lacking a bit in the mid game. You see there about the 4-5 mana point, there's very, very little. We have the bog standard, we've got the Children Yeti in there, we've got both of them. 1 Gnomish Inventor and 1 Sen'jin Shield Master. Now, I mentioned earlier on we've only got the 1 of the Shield Master, which I'm not entirely sure that really needs an awful lot of explanation. Taunt is maybe not as strong as a lot of people like to think it is. There are ways of dealing with taunt, so it's not a game breaker, it's not a deal breaker. I could argue that you could drop that out and add in another Gnomish Inventor. That would give you another card. You could, if you wanted to add another one of those in, here you go, you could drop out a Wolf Rider. Again, because we've got a fair amount of stuff down here in the bottom end, a lot of 2s, so you could easily drop out. Well, you could maybe drop out a River Crocodiles, because that's a really solid card. I would always want to keep in the Acidic Swamp Ooze just in case, because that destroy the opponent's weapon is almost irreplaceable. But yeah, as with anything else, feel free to experiment, drop things in, drop things out, see how it goes. Just play with it for a few games to see how it's performing, see where you're weak. If you find yourself struggling in the early game and then thriving in the late, take a few things out of the early game, add a few things into the late game, or vice versa. As I say with every single one of these videos, don't take this as this is gospel. This is not the best starter deck out there. This is, a thoroughly mediocre starter deck. I am a thoroughly mediocre Hearthstone player. One last thing, you also notice, so we don't have any Moonfire in here. There we go. That's because it's terrible. 1 damage for free seems okay, but there are so many other cards which will do more than 1 damage. Not just specifically 1 damage, will give you a better effect than 1 damage for 1 or 2 mana. That's just, it's a waste. It's literally just wasted cards in your deck. There's so many better cards than that. Although the effect itself is not bad. 1 damage for nothing is, it seems okay on the surface, but you're taking up space which much more effective cards can easily take up. So no, that's not in there. As I said, Healing Touch is not in here, despite the temptation to show off your shiny golden card. 8 health is a large amount. As I said, if you're down 8 health, you've got more things to worry about than healing 8 health, if that makes sense. If you're down 8 health, then you really need to be thinking about what's on the board and what you can take off the board to mitigate any further damage, rather than just healing the damage that you've taken. If that makes sense. I'm probably not making a good point, but yeah, trust me, it's not a great card, so don't worry too much about it. That being said, you can drop it in. It can be useful against speedy aggro decks, type of things you'll get from rogues and mages. You can always drop one of those in to maybe buy a bit of breathing room, but I would be very cautious about doing it, generally, in any other circumstances. But yeah, so I think that is about us. As with all the other decks that we've done, I will pop a full deck list in the comments down below. in the description down below. But yeah, give the deck a try, see how it goes. As I say, experiment with it. Let us know how you got on with it. And that'll be that. We will have more videos up for you shortly. Hopefully by the time this goes up, all of our videos will be uploaded. And there should be something there for everyone. So thank you very much for watching. Give us a like if you liked us, give us a dislike if you didn't. In which case, yeah, stop watching. You know, don't watch videos you don't like, you idiot. And thank you very much. We will see you next time.